The sun had just peaked over the horizon, its golden light stretching across the surface of the Pacific Ocean. In a small corner of San Diego, California, where the waves gently lapped against the sandy shore, John Hawk Callahan's old wooden house stood quietly amid knee-high weeds. The sea breeze blew through, carrying the salty scent of the ocean, causing the faded curtains to flutter softly. Inside, Hawk, an 80-year-old man, sat in a worn-out armchair, holding a cup of long, cold black coffee. His eyes, though clouded with age, remained sharp as a knife, reflecting the gaze of a veteran from DevGru, known as SEAL Team 6, once a nightmare for enemies on the battlefield. Hawk wasn't the type to show off. He lived quietly, steering clear of the spotlight from his covert operations in Afghanistan and Somalia during the 80s and 90s. Now, when most people his age would be sitting around playing chess or watching TV all day, he chose the garage as a sanctuary. There, he diligently worked on a few old fishing boats, his hands moving swiftly with wrenches and hammers, as if time couldn't slow him down. The countless scars on his hands, remnants of knives, bullets, and near-death experiences, told a story he never spoke of. The old radio crackled to life in the corner of the room, broadcasting the morning news. Police had just arrested 3 drug dealers in Tijuana, less than 20 miles from the San Diego border. Hawk froze, his hand trembling slightly as he tightened the bolt on the boat's engine. Tijuana, the name struck like a dagger into his memory. He had led a SEAL team on a raid across that border, taking down a smuggling ring in the pitch-black night. But that was 40 years ago, when his legs were as quick as the wind and his heart wasn't weighed down by loss. He shook his head, muttering, "That damn place hasn't changed a bit." Outside, the voices of neighborhood kids echoed, "Mr. Hawk, tell us a story." They gathered around the garage every Sunday morning, their eyes shining with anticipation for him to share tales of his glorious days. Hawk stepped out, squinting in the sunlight. "What do you want to hear today? The time I shot down a helicopter, or when I parachuted into the desert?" He chuckled, his voice raspy yet warm. The kids cheered. "Helicopter, helicopter." Hawk settled into a folding chair, starting to tell his story in a steady tone, like he was reading the news. But in his heart, those memories were more than just a tale. They were the sounds of gunfire, the screams of his comrades, and the overwhelming smell of gunpowder. This is Hawk's life now. Slow, peaceful, almost dull. He likes it that way. After decades of living on the edge of life and death, this tranquility is a reward he gives himself. But deep down inside him, the warrior's fire still smolders, like an ember waiting for a gust of wind to ignite it. The phone rang, interrupting Hawk's story. He frowned and muttered, "Damn it! Who's calling this early?" The kids fell silent, watching him shuffle into the house. On the screen of his old phone, the name Sarah, his daughter, lit up. Hawk answered, his tone softening. "Hey, sweetheart, why are you up so early? Did you have another fight with that husband of yours?" But the voice on the other end wasn't the usual laughter of Sarah. Instead, it was a choked, sobbing cry, as if she were struggling to breathe. Dad, Ethan, he's been kidnapped." Hawk stood frozen, his hand gripping the phone so tightly that his knuckles turned white. "Calm down, Sarah. Tell me exactly what happened." Sarah choked back tears as she recounted the story. Ethan, the 16-year-old boy Hawk loved like his own flesh and blood, had gone on a trip with his friends to Tijuana last weekend. It was just a few days of fun across the border, the kind of thing kids in California often do to change things up. But last night, Sarah received a call from an unknown number. A cold male voice, tinged with a hint of a Mexican accent, echoed through the line. "You have 72 hours to come up with $2 million. If not, the kid dies. Don't call the cops. We'll know." Sarah screamed, demanding to hear Ethan's voice, and a few seconds later, the weak sound of the boy came through. "Mom, help me." Then the call was abruptly cut off. Hawk felt blood rush to his head, his breath coming in heavy gasps. He leaned against the wall, trying to keep calm. "Sarah, listen to me. Where's Ethan? Do you know anything else?" Sarah cried, "I don't know, Dad. Tijuana. He's probably there. They didn't say much. Dad, what are we going to do? I don't have $2 million. Hawk sat in silence for a moment, his eyes gazing out the window. The sky in San Diego was still bright blue, but for him, it felt shrouded in dark clouds. Tijuana, less than 20 miles away, had once again become a battleground. He knew the kidnappers of Ethan weren't just any run-of-the-mill thugs. That voice, the way they issued commands, it reeked of Los Zetas, the infamous cartel in Mexico he had faced during his time in Dev Group. They weren't joking. 72 hours was all he had. Hawk took a deep breath, his voice lowering. "Sarah, stay calm. I'm going to bring the boy back, even if I have to tear that hellhole apart." Sarah sobbed. "Dad, you're getting old. How can you?" He interrupted her. "Don't talk to me about age. Ethan is my flesh and blood. You just stay put. I'll handle this." He hung up the phone, standing in the stillness of the wooden house. The sound of the ocean waves continued to roll in, but now it felt like a drumbeat urging him on in his mind. Hawk walked over to the garage and opened an old metal box on the floor. Inside lay his trusty Colt 1911, the old friend that had been with him through countless battles. He gently ran his fingers along the barrel, murmuring, "You've been resting long enough. It's time to get to work." He straightened up, his eyes shining with the fire of his youth. Though his body had slowed down, the warrior spirit within him remained alive, stronger than ever. John Hawk Callahan stood in the garage, his hand still gripping the Colt 1911 tightly. The dim light from the hanging bulb above cast shadows, highlighting the deep lines etched into his face. The distant sound of the ocean echoed in, but now, it was no longer a sound of tranquility. To Hawk, it felt like a call from the past, pulling him back to days he thought he had buried. He set the gun down on the workbench, plopped into an old folding chair, and closed his eyes. In his mind, the memories of Tijuana came flooding back. It was 1987, a moonless night at the Mexico border. Hawk, then just 42 years old, led a Dev Group team to raid on a drug warehouse, the precursor to Los Zetas. The mission was to eliminate the target swiftly and leave no trace behind. But everything fell apart when a rookie and the team dropped a smoke grenade, turning the whole area into a chaotic battlefield. The sound of AK-47 gunfire rained down like a storm, and Hawk's teammates fell, blood staining the parched ground. He still remembers the feeling of holding his best friend, Jimmy, in his arms while his finger kept pulling the trigger to carve out a path for their escape. They survived, but the cost was far too high. Hawk opened his eyes and sighed. "Tijuana," he muttered. "You're still that damn black hole." He knew Los Zetas were no longer the amateur smugglers they used to be. Now, they were a massive, brutal crime organization with networks spread all over Mexico. They had taken Ethan not for fun. The $2 million was just an excuse, and if Sarah didn't pay up, the kid would die, or worse, be sold into human trafficking. Hawk had seen what they did to their prisoners, chopping off hands, ripping out hearts, filming it all to send to the victims' families. The thought of Ethan the kid he once taught how to fish on the beaches of San Diego falling into the hands of those bastards made his heart feel like it was being crushed. He stood up and walked over to the wooden cabinet in the corner of the garage. Inside was an old tin box covered in dust. Hawk opened the lid and pulled out a yellowed photograph. Him, Sarah, and Ethan, taken 5 years ago at the pier. Ethan was just 11 then, grinning from ear to ear with the first fish he had ever caught. Hawk gently stroked the photo, his voice hoarse. "I won't let you go, kid. Not ever." Hawk returned to his desk, picking up the Colt 1911 to check it. He pulled back the slide, inspected the magazine. Everything was still in working order, even after sitting in the metal box for nearly 20 years. But when he raised the gun to take aim, his hand trembled slightly, not out of fear, but because of his age. The hands that once hit targets from 50 yards away in the dark were no longer as steady as they used to be. He reminded himself, "You're getting old, Hawk. You're not that young paratrooper jumping into the fire anymore." Sarah's voice echoed in his mind. "Dad, you're getting old. How can you?" He gritted his teeth and slammed his hand on the table. "Don't talk to me about age," he roared, even though he was alone in the garage. But deep down, he knew she was right. At 80, his body was no longer what it used to be. His knees ached every time the weather turned cold. He had to squint to see far away, and his back felt as stiff as a board after a long day of work. If this were a DevGru mission, he would have been cut from the health screening right away. But then he remembered Ethan. The boy wasn't just his grandson. He was the reason he still felt alive after retiring. Every time Ethan came to visit, wrapped his arms around him and shouted, "Grandpa Hawk is a superhero," he felt a renewed sense of purpose. Hawk didn't have a son. Sarah was his only child, and Ethan was all he had to carry on the Callahan name. If I don't go, who will save him? He wondered. The police? The FBI? They'd take a week just to hold meetings, while Ethan only had 72 hours left. Hawk sighed and set down his gun. He knew he couldn't do this alone. Los Zetas weren't just some low-level thugs. They had guns, manpower, and a whole surveillance system. An 80-year-old man, even one who used to be a SEAL, couldn't just charge into the lion's den by himself. But he wasn't about to give up. "I need you guys," he muttered, his eyes lighting up with the thought. Hawk stepped into the house, rummaging through the desk drawer to find an old notebook, a brown leather journal that held the phone numbers of his former teammates from SEAL Team 6. He flipped through each page, his fingers trembling as he came across familiar names. Mike Bear Russo, Eddie Doc Alvarez, Tom Gosengwin. They were the ones who had lived and died alongside him, who had shared their last piece of bread in the desert, who had patched each other up amidst the gunfire. Now, they were as old as he was, scattered across the country, but Hawk knew that if he called, they would come. He picked up the phone and dialed Bear, the big guy in Texas, an explosives expert whom Hawk always trusted in tough times. The phone rang 3 times before a gravelly voice came on. "Who is this? If you're selling insurance, get lost." Hawk chuckled. "Bear, you're still as grumpy as ever." "It's me, Hawk." There was silence on the other end for a moment. Then Bear shouted, "Damn it, Hawk! You're still alive? I thought you kicked the bucket in that godforsaken shack." Hawk didn't beat around the bush. "I need you, Bear. My nephew, Ethan, has been taken by Los Zetas in Tijuana. 72 hours, $2 million, or the kid's dead." Bear interrupted. "Wait, Los Zetas? Those crazy bastards? What are you planning to do, old man?" Hawk replied, his voice steady. "I'm bringing the kid back, but I can't do it alone. Are you in?" Bear laughed heartily. "Damn, I thought retirement meant no more fighting. All right, give me a reason to smash someone." Hawk hung up the phone, his heart racing. A piece of the puzzle had fallen into place. He looked at the notebook, murmuring, "What about Doc and Ghost? Where are you guys?" He knew the road ahead wouldn't be easy, but for the first time that day, he felt a glimmer of hope. The warrior's fire within him wasn't just burning, it was spreading. John Hawk Callahan sat in his small wooden house in San Diego, an old leather notebook spread open on the table in front of him. The light from a cheap desk lamp illuminated the faded handwriting of phone numbers belonging to his old teammates from DevGru, the ones who had stood by him through thick and thin. His recent call with Mike Bear Russo felt like a breath of fresh air in his mind. Bear had agreed right away, without hesitation, and that brought a glimmer of hope to Hawk in the darkness. But he knew that Bear alone wouldn't be enough to take on Los Zetas. He needed a whole team of people who had turned impossible missions into reality. Hawk flipped through the notebook, his fingers stopping at the name Eddie Doc Alvarez. Doc was the team's battlefield medic, the one who stitched up Hawk's wounds with fishing line on a rainy night in Somalia when the whole team was pinned down behind enemy lines. He dialed a number, the phone ringing a few times before a deep voice came on the line. "Who's this? If it's some telemarketer, I'll come find you." Hawk scoffed. "Doc, you still have that mouth of yours?" "It's me, Hawk." Doc sounded surprised. "Hawk? Damn, are you okay? I thought you were off fishing at that damn beach." Hawk got straight to the point. "Doc, I need you. My nephew, Ethan, has been taken by Los Zetas in Tijuana. 72 hours, $2 million, or the kid's dead. I'm putting a team together." There was silence on the other end for a moment. Then Doc sighed. "Los Zetas, huh? Those crazy bastards don't mess around." "Hawk, are you sure? We're not getting any younger." Hawk growled. "I don't care about age. Ethan is my family. Are you in or not?" Doc chuckled softly. "I'm old, but I'm not dead yet. Count me in." The third call is to Tom, Ghost, and Gwen, the team's Vietnamese sniper. Ghost is always quiet, but every bullet from his M24 is a death sentence to the enemy. The phone rings longer than usual, and Hawk almost thinks Ghost won't answer until a cold, deep voice breaks the silence. "Hawk?" He replies, "Yeah, it's me. Ghost, I need you. My nephew's been taken by Los Zetas in Tijuana. 72 hours. I'm calling the team back." Ghost is silent for a few seconds, then responds succinctly, "I'll be there." No further questions. No hesitation. That's the Ghost Hawk knows. Hawk snapped the notebook shut and placed it on the table. He glanced at the wall clock. The hour hand pointed to 7:30 a.m. The call from Sarah had come less than an hour ago, but to him, it felt like a lifetime. 72 hours, about 71 hours left to save Ethan. He stood up, walked to the window, and gazed out the Pacific Ocean shimmering in the early sunlight. But that peaceful scene did nothing to calm the storm brewing inside him. He knew all too well the price of delay. Los Zetas weren't the type of kidnappers who waited around. If they didn't see the money within 72 hours, Ethan would become a corpse or worse, a commodity in the hands of human traffickers. Hawk had seen the videos they sent to the victims' families. Scenes of beheadings, torture, the screams echoing amidst the laughter of those bastards. He clenched his fist, his nails digging deep into his palm until it bled. "No," he muttered. "I won't let that happen to the kid." Hawk returned to the garage, starting to check his Colt 1911. He wiped the barrel clean, inspecting the magazine with 7 rounds, enough to take down a few guys if necessary. But he knew a handgun wasn't enough to take on an entire gang. He needed firepower, a plan, and above all, his team. Bear Doc. Ghost, they were the final pieces of an undefeated fighting machine. Even after nearly 40 years, he believed they still carried that fire within them, just like he did. Hawk stood tall, his eyes blazing like they did in his youth. He knew he was stepping into a battle that, at 80 years old, he shouldn't be part of. His body could betray him at any moment. His knees ached. His hands trembled from holding the gun too long, and his breath grew short after just a few minutes of exertion. But he didn't care. Ethan was the reason he lived, the last thread connecting him to this world. If he didn't go, who would save the boy? He walked over to the table and wrote a short note on a scrap of paper. San Diego, Rusty Anchor Bar, 6 p.m. tonight. That was where he would meet the team, a rundown bar near the beach where they used to gather after each mission. Hawk stuffed the note into his pocket and texted Bear, Doc, and Ghost. "Rusty Anchor, 6 p.m. Don't be late." Hawk looked out at the sea one last time, muttering, "Tijuana, you want to play? I'll show you who I am." He turned around, stepped into the house, and slammed the door shut. The sound of the waves was still steady, but now it felt like the heartbeat of a warrior ready to fight. Hawk was no longer just the old man fixing boats. He was a fighter, and his battle was just beginning. The sun was slowly setting on the horizon, painting the surface of the Pacific Ocean red off the coast of San Diego. John Hawk Callahan stood in front of the mirror in his old wooden house, putting on the worn leather jacket he used to wear during his days leading the dev group through secret missions. He looked at himself in the mirror. His hair was silver white, his face lined with wrinkles, but his eyes still sparkled like a flame that never went out. He muttered, "You're getting old, Hawk, but the story's not over yet." He tucked the Colt 1911 into the holster under his jacket, double-checked the note in his pocket that read, "Rusty Anchor, 6 p.m. tonight," and stepped outside. Rusty Anchor is a rundown bar located near the San Diego beach, just under 2 miles from Hawk's house. It used to be a hangout for the SEAL team after every mission, where they would drink beer, curse, and laugh to forget the bloody days. Now, it's still there, but the walls are stained, and the air is thick with the smell of cheap beer and cigarettes. Hawk pushes the door open, and a bell jingles. Inside, a few drunken sailors are singing, but he doesn't care. He picks a secluded table in the corner, orders a Budweiser, and sits back to wait. The clock on the wall reads 5:50 p.m. Hawk took a sip of his beer, his eyes scanning the bar. He remembered the last time the team gathered here in 1995, after a mission in South America. Bear had punched a drunk guy in the nose for daring to tease Doc, while Ghost sat quietly in the corner, smoking. They had aged. but the memories of camaraderie were as vivid as ever. He wondered, how much strength do you guys still have left, old-timers? But he didn't have time for doubts. Ethan was in Tijuana, and every passing minute brought the kid closer to death. The roar of an engine thundered outside, drowning out the sound of the waves. Hawk looked up to see an old pickup truck screech to a halt in front of the bar. The door swung open, and Mike Bear Russo stepped out. The big guy, standing over 6 feet tall, had a slight hunch in his back at the age of 78. His scruffy silver beard and the tattered plaid shirt made Bear look like an old cowboy who had just stepped out of a Western film. He pushed through the bar door, striding in with his heavy leather boots, his eyes scanning the room before landing on Hawk. "Damn it, Hawk! You look like you just crawled out of a grave." Bear roared, his voice echoing throughout the bar. Hawk smirked. "You're not looking any better, Bear. Sit down, don't make me look bad." Bear pulled out a chair and plopped down, immediately ordering a whiskey. "I drove 12 hours from Texas to get here. Old man, what kind of trouble has your kid gotten into that you had to drag me out of the garage?" Hawk recounted everything. Ethan was captured by Los Zetas in Tijuana. 72 hours, $2 million. Bear slammed his hand on the table, causing his whiskey to slosh. "Los Zetas? Those crazy dogs? What are you planning to do? Storm in there with your junky little pistol?" Hawk looked Bear straight in the eye. "No. I need you, Bear. And Doc and Ghost too. We've taken down entire armies with less than this. Remember Mogadishu?" Bear nodded, his eyes lighting up. "Of course. I blew up their armor truck. All right, I'm in. But I need C4 without explosives. I can't do anything." Hawk nodded. "I'll take care of the weapons. But wait for the whole team." Bear laughed loudly. "Damn it! I thought retirement meant no more fighting. Now you've got me itching for action." Less than 10 minutes later, the door of the bar swung open. Eddie Doc Alvarez walked in, a small but sturdy figure. Even at 79 years old, he wore a windbreaker and a baseball cap, looking like he had just come back from a run of habit he kept since his days in the SEALs. Doc scanned the room, spotted Hawk and Bear, and shook his head. "You guys are still picking this dump, huh? The smell in here makes me want to puke." Hawk stood up and shook Doc's hand. "Good, you're still alive. Have a seat." Doc pulled up a chair, sat down, and ordered a glass of water. He hadn't touched alcohol since that near-fatal binge in Colombia. "I flew in from Florida right after your call. Hawk, what's so serious that you dragged me on my rocking chair?" Hawk recounted once more, his voice deeper. "Ethan, my nephew, 16 years old. Los Zetas grabbed him in Tijuana. I've got 71 hours to bring him back." Doc frowned. "Los Zetas? Those guys don't mess around." "Hawk, are you sure? We're getting old. Not as quick as we used to be." Bear chimed in. "Don't talk about age to this old man. Document. You haven't seen your face when you tell a story." Doc chuckled softly. "All right then. If you need me, I'm in. But I need your medical kit if you guys get shot. Don't expect me to stitch you up with my bare hands." Hawk nodded. "I'll take care of everything. Just wait for Ghost." Doc looked at Hawk, his expression serious. "You know what we're getting into, right? This isn't a game anymore." Hawk replied, "I know, but Ethan is my family. I won't abandon him." 3 old men sat around the table. The atmosphere in the bar felt heavier. Bear sipped his whiskey. Doc drummed his fingers on the table, while Hawk glanced at the clock. 6:15 p.m. Ghost still hadn't arrived, but Hawk wasn't worried. Ghost was always on time in his own way. He knew that when the whole team gathered, they wouldn't just be a bunch of retired guys. They'd be SEAL Team 6 once again. Hawk took a final sip of his beer, muttering, "Tijuana, you better watch out. We're on our way." The sound of the ocean waves outside seemed to sync with his determination, and for the first time that day, he felt he wasn't alone. The sound of the ocean waves outside the rusty anchor continued to crash against the shore, but inside, the atmosphere between John Hawk Callahan, Mike Bear Russo, and Eddie Doc Alvarez was starting to heat up. The clock on the wall read 6:20 p.m., and Hawk took another swig of his beer, his eyes darting to the door. Bear growled, "Where the hell is Ghost? If that guy is late, I swear I'll drive Nevada and knock him out. Doc chuckled softly. Easy there, Bear. Ghost is never late. He just likes to keep us waiting. Just then, the door to the bar swung open, without a single jingle of the bell, as if someone had intentionally chosen to keep it quiet. Tom, Ghost, and Gwyn stepped inside, his slender yet sturdy frame betraying his 75 years. His silver hair was neatly tied back at the nape of his neck, and his narrow, elongated eyes glinted with a cold intensity. Ghost wore a black coat, clutching an old, worn-out bag that made him look like he had just emerged from the desert. He said nothing, silently making his way to the table, setting down the bag, and taking a seat next to Hawk. Hawk nodded. Ghost? Good, you're here. Ghost replied, his voice deep like the wind. You called, I came. How's your nephew? Hawk recounted the story once more, brief yet complete. Ethan, Tijuana, Los Zetas, 72 hours, $2 million. After listening, Ghost nodded slightly. Los Zetas. They're numerous and ruthless. Do you have a plan yet? Bear chimed in. What kind of plan can we have with just a bunch of old guys and a rusty pistol? Ghost shot Bear a glance, a smirk playing on his lips. You're still as loud as ever, Bear. Hawk set his beard down, his voice low. I don't have a detailed plan yet, but I know what we need to do. Ethan is locked up in Tijuana, probably in some old factory or warehouse like the ones Los Zetas use. I'm going to cross the border, find the kid, and bring him back. But I need all of you, every single one of you. Ghost nodded. I'm bringing the M24. If there are too many, I'll clear the way from a distance. Hawk smirked. Still the Ghost I know. For old men sat around the table, Hawk, Bear, Doc, and Ghost looking at each other for a moment, with no one saying a word. They had once been the undefeated warriors of SEAL Team 6, facing the fiercest enemies in the world. Now they were old, their hair gray, but their eyes still spoke a truth. Brotherhood never dies. Bear slammed his hand on the table. Damn it! You guys make me nostalgic for the old days. Remember that time in Afghanistan? Hawk jumped down from 10,000 feet, and I blew up the whole Taliban camp. Doc laughed loudly. Yeah, and I had to stitch up your eyebrow because you jumped down and landed on a pile of rocks. You screamed like a little kid. Bear growled. Shut up, Doc. At least I wasn't passed out drunk like you were in Colombia. Ghost, still silent, just smirked with his rare smile. Hawk looked at the team, his voice warm. You guys are still the same, huh? We're getting older, but I know you still have that fire. Ethan needs us, and I need you all one more time. Bear sipped his whiskey and nodded. I'm in, but I need C4. Without explosives, I'm just a big, useless guy. Doc added, I need a medical kit. If you guys get shot, I don't want to just stand there and watch. Ghost replied briefly, my M24 is enough, but you need more guns, Hawk. Hawk nodded. I know where to get weapons. I have an old buddy at the DA who owes me a favor. He can handle it. The atmosphere in the bar began to shift. From the initial silence, it now buzzed with the determination of 4 old men. They weren't just retirees. They were a team, and when they were together, they were a nightmare for anyone who dared confront them. Hawk glanced at the clock. 6:35 p.m. There were about 70 hours left to save Ethan. Time was running out, but he felt a sense of relief he was no longer alone. Hawk stood up, signaling for the whole team to be quiet. He pulled his chair closer, his voice dropping. Listen to me. We have 70 hours to get into Tijuana, find Ethan, and get out. Los Zetas aren't just some low-level thugs. They have guns, manpower, and a whole surveillance system. But we've pulled off crazier things than this before. I'll reach out to my buddy at the DEA for weapons and intel. Bear, you handle explosives. Doc, get the medical supplies ready. Ghost, you'll be our eyes, scouting for a sniper position when we get there. Bear nodded. I'll whip up a few homemade C4S. Don't worry. It'll be enough to blow that factory sky high. Doc frowned. I'll bring extra bandages and morphine for you guys if you get hurt, so don't scream like you did back in the day. Ghost said briefly, I need a map of Tijuana. Let me know where the highest point is, and I'll take it from there. Hawk nodded. I'll handle the map. Tomorrow, we meet at my place at 8 a.m. Get some rest. because after that, there won't be any time. Hawk looked at the team, his voice steady. You guys are getting old, and so am I, but they have no idea what it costs to mess with a SEAL. Ethan is coming home, I promise. Bear laughed heartily. Damn, you say that, and I want to punch someone right now. Doc shook his head. Calm down, Bear. Save your energy for Tijuana. Ghost stood up, grabbing his bag. See you tomorrow. Hawk watched his teammates leave the bar, one by one. He stood there alone, gripping the empty beer glass tightly. The sound of the waves outside seemed to sync with the slow, yet strong, rhythm of his heartbeat. He murmured, Ethan, wait for me. I'm on my way. Early morning in San Diego. The sun had just peaked over the horizon, casting a soft golden light through the windows of John Hawk Callahan's wooden house. Inside, the atmosphere was anything but peaceful. The old wooden table in the living room was now cluttered with papers, maps, and a few cold cups of coffee. Hawk stood in the middle of the room, pencil in hand, his eyes glued to the sprawling map of Tijuana laid out before him. He had been awake all night, sketching circles and hasty lines on the map, memories from past missions at the border, now serving as a guide for this one. The wall clock reads 7:50 a.m. Hawk looks out the window, muttering, You guys better not be late. There are about 68 hours left to save Ethan, and every second is worth its weight in gold. The sound of an engine roars outside, shattering the silence. Hawk steps out and sees Mike Bear Russo's beat-up pickup truck, screeching to a stop in front of the house. Bear hops out, lugging a heavy canvas bag, grinning from ear to ear. Think I'd be late, old man? I brought some toys. Hawk nods. Good. Come on in. Less than 5 minutes later, Eddie Doc Alvarez arrived, driving a scratched silver SUV. He stepped out, holding an old military medical bag, shaking his head. I can't believe I'm doing this at 79. You owe me a vacation after this, Hawk. Hawk scoffed. If we survive, I'll take you fishing. Finally, a sleek black motorcycle quietly appeared. Tom Ghost Gwynn parked his bike, removed his helmet, and scanned the area with a cold gaze. He didn't say a word, just nodded at Hawk before heading inside the house. For old men gathered around the table, the air in the room felt thick. Hawk pointed at the map. This is Tijuana. I bet Los Zetas are holding Ethan in one of those old factory areas near the border about 20 miles from San Diego. They love using abandoned places as their base. Bear growled, You're just guessing, right? If you're wrong, we'll be wandering into that hellhole without a clue how to get out. Hawk replied, I'm not just guessing. I raided a place like that back in '87, and I have a buddy at the DA digging up intel for us. Hawk picked up the phone and dialed Rick Morales, a retired DA agent who had worked with him on drug busts back in the 90s. The phone rang twice before a gravelly voice came on the line. Hawk, you're still alive? I thought you bit the dust in that cabin. Hawk got straight to the point. Rick, I need you. My nephew's been taken by Los Zetas in Tijuana. I need weapons and intel right now. Rick sighed. Los Zetas? You're out of your mind. Hawk, they're not some small-time thugs. You're getting old. Just let it go and let the cops handle it. Hawk growled. The cops won't make it in time. I've got 68 hours. You owe me from that time in Bogota. Pay up. There was silence on the other end for a moment. Then Rick said, All right, I've got a few contacts in San Diego. AR-15's ammo, and a couple of smoke grenades you can grab in 2 hours. As for intel, I've heard Los Zetas are using an old factory on the east side of Tijuana, near the 2D highway. I'll send you the exact coordinates later. But Hawk, if you get killed, don't blame me. Hawk replied, Thanks, Rick. If I die, just have a whiskey for me. Hawk hung up the phone and turned to the team. Rick will handle the AR-15 smoke grenades and ammo. He also confirmed that Ethan might be at an old factory near Route 2D. I'll get the coordinates later. Bear laughed loudly. Damn, an AR-15? I like that. But I still need C4. Without explosives, I'm not happy. Hawk nodded. Rick can take care of that too. I'll ask him. Doc chimed in. I need morphine and bandages as well. If you guys get shot, I don't want to just stand there and watch. Ghost said succinctly, I need a scope for the M24. Taking shots from a distance will be easier. Hawk nodded, assigning tasks. Bear, you stay here with me. Check the map and plan the explosion. Doc, you go to the car and grab a medical kit. See if anything's missing and let me know. Rick can handle the rest. Ghost, head outside. Check the M24. Be ready when we get the coordinates. Bear clapped his hands. Great. I'll sketch out a demolition plan. That factory will be nothing but ashes if I have C4. Doc muttered, I just hope you guys don't keep me too busy. Ghost stood up, grabbed the bag, and headed outside without saying another word. Hawk sat down and unfolded a larger map. He drew a circle around the area of the 2D highway, muttering, If Rick is right, Ethan is here. About 30 armed men, maybe more. Bear leaned over Hawk's shoulder. 30 guys? We only have 4 old-timers. What's the plan? Hawk replied, We don't need to take them all out. We'll sneak in, grab Ethan, and get out. Ghost will clear the way from a distance. You'll create a distraction with C4. Doc will handle logistics, and I'll go in. Bear nodded. Sounds good, but what if there are more of them? Hawk smirked. Then we'll make sure they remember us. The clock read 8:30 a.m. Hawk looked up, feeling the weight of pressure bearing down on him. 68 hours of listening felt long, but for a mission like this, it was nothing. He knew Los Zetas could move Ethan at any moment, or worse, kill the boy if they suspected the family had alerted the police. Hawk clenched his fist, his nails digging into his palm. Ethan, he murmured. Hang on, I'm coming. Bear stood next to him, patting Hawk on the shoulder. You good? Old man, you look like you're about to punch someone. Hawk shook his head. I'm fine. It's just, I can't lose the kid. Bear nodded, his voice dropping. I get it. If it were my kid, I'd tear Tijuana apart. We can do this, Hawk. Hawk looked at the Bear team with a confident smile. Doc with the calmness of a battlefield doctor. Ghost outside with an M24 in hand. They were old, but they were SEALs. He stood up, his voice steady. We have 2 hours to get the weapons from Rick. After that, we'll lay out a detailed plan. Get ready. The sun had risen a bit higher in the San Diego sky, its harsh light pouring down onto the dusty road, leading to an old warehouse about 5 miles from John Hawk Callahan's place. Hawk sat behind the wheel of Bear's pickup, gripping the steering wheel tightly, his eyes focused straight ahead. Next to him, Mike Bear Russo grumbled, Damn, this truck shakes like it's about to fall apart. You sure Rick isn't messing with us, Hawk? Hawk replied tersely, Rick owes me his life. He wouldn't dare. Eddie, Doc, Alvarez, and Tom, Ghost, and Gwen sat quietly in the back seat. Doc checked the medical bag, mumbling, I hope Rick has morphine. If you guys get shot, I don't want to hear you whining. Ghost, stroking the M24, simply nodded. Scope. I need a scope. Hawk glanced in the rear-view mirror, calmed down. Rick said he has everything we need. The car came to a stop in front of a rickety warehouse, its walls rusted and the roll-up door half broken. Hawk stepped out and knocked 3 times on the door, following an old signal. The door creaked open, revealing Rick Morales, a man in his 60s with salt and pepper hair, wearing a worn leather jacket. Rick smirked. Hawk, you look like you're about to go into one last fight. Come on in. Inside the warehouse, the dim light from a few bulbs illuminated a pile of wooden crates. Rick pointed. This is what you need. 3 AR-15s, 10 magazines, 6 smoke grenades, and a few C4s I dug up from an old job. There's also morphine and bandages for your doctor. Bear laughed heartily, slapping Rick on the shoulder. Damn, I like you already. C4, huh? I'm gonna make Tijuana shake. Doc checked the medical bag, nodding. Enough supplies. Thanks. Ghost opened a crate, pulled out a scope, mounted on the M24, and nodded at Hawk. Good. Hawk looked at Rick. Where are the coordinates? Rick handed over a piece of paper. An old factory, east of Tijuana, about half a mile off the 2D highway. Los Zetas are using it as a stash house and for holding people. I heard there are around 30 to 40 gunmen, armored vehicles, and a few guys guarding the outside. Hawk nodded. "Thanks, Rick. If we make out alive, I'll repay you." Rick shook his head. "Just focus on surviving first. You guys are crazy, but I know no one can stop you." The pickup rolled back to Hawk's place, loaded with a pile of weapons in the bed. The air inside the truck felt heavier than on the way there. Bear fiddled with his C4, mumbling, "I'll set 2 at the gate, 1 at the back. They'll scatter like chickens." Doc frowned. "Don't blow up the kid too, Bear. I don't want to stitch up both the team and Ethan." Ghost said succinctly, "I'll take them out from above. Clear the guards first." Hawk nodded. "Good. We'll move in at night when they're least alert." Back home, the team laid out their weapons on the table. Hawk spread the map of Tijuana, pointing to the coordinates Rick had given. "This is a factory. It's about 200 yards long, 100 yards wide, with 2 main gates and a side entrance in the back. We're going to cross the border through an old smuggling tunnel I used back in '87, about 3 miles south of San Diego." Bear frowned. "A tunnel? Are you sure it's still usable?" Hawk replied, "I checked it out. The drug dealers are still using it. We'll come out near 2D Street, half a mile from the factory." Hawk drew a diagram. "Ghost, you need to find a high spot on a hill about 300 yards east of the factory. Take out the guard and clear us a path. Bear, you'll set C4 at the main gate and the side entrance to create chaos. Doc, you'll be near the side entrance, ready to back us up. I'll go in and find Ethan." Doc asked, "What if there are more than 40 of them?" Hawk scoffed. "Then we'll keep them busy. We don't need to win. We just need to get Ethan out." Bear nodded. "I like this plan, but what if they have armored vehicles?" Hawk replied, "We'll use smoke grenades to blind them. Ghost will take out the driver from a distance." Ghost nodded. "Got it." Doc sighed. "I just hope you guys don't keep me stitching all night." Hawk stood tall, looking at the team. The plan sounded simple, but he knew it was fraught with danger. He recalled Mogadishu in 1993, a similar mission where the team was ambushed, losing 2 men. He had sworn never to let his teammates die again, yet here he was, dragging them into peril. He muttered, "You guys don't have to do this. You can go home." Bear growled. "What the hell are you talking about? I'm not leaving you, Hawk." Doc chuckled softly. "I may be old, but I'm not a coward. I'm in." Ghost looked at Hawk, his voice cold. "Ethan is your family. That means he's my family, too." Hawk nodded, a warm feeling mixed with pressure weighing down on his chest. He glanced at the clock. 10:30 a.m. 66 hours left. He knew Los Zetas could change everything at any moment, move Ethan, kill the kid, or set a trap. He clenched his fist, his nails digging into his palm. "Ethan," he murmured, "you have to hang in there. I'm coming." Bear patted Hawk on the shoulder. "You good? Your face looks like you're about to punch someone." Hawk shook his head. "I'm fine. It's just, I don't want to lose the kid." Bear nodded. "I get it. We'll make it happen. We're SEALs, after all." Hawk turned back to the map, his voice firm. "We're taking a 2-hour break to eat and check our weapons. At 1 p.m., we head out across the border. No one could be late." The whole team nodded, starting to divide up the tasks. Bear checked the C4, Doc organized the medical supplies, and Ghost cleaned the M24. Hawk stood alone, gazing out at the sea through the window. The sound of the waves was like his heartbeat, slow, yet powerful. He knew the upcoming battle was not just for Ethan, but for themselves, the old warriors who refused to be defeated by time. The sun hung high in the sky over San Diego, its bright light streaming through the windows of John Hawk Callahan's wooden house. Inside, the atmosphere was heavy, like the calm before a storm. The wooden table in the living room was cluttered with maps, weapons, and a few empty coffee cups. Hawk stood next to the table, hands on his hips, his eyes fixed on the wall clock reading 11 a.m. There were 65 hours left to save Ethan, and his team had just finished checking the weapons from Rick Morales. He turned to his team, his voice low. "You guys take a break. In 2 hours, at 1 p.m., we hit the road. No one can be late." "Mike Bear." Russo plopped down in the armchair, holding a C4 like a kid playing with a toy. "Damn it, I can't sleep, Hawk. Just thinking about blowing that factory up has me all jittery." He laughed heartily, but Hawk noticed a tension in his eyes, the kind of tension that comes from someone who's seen too much fire and smoke. Eddie, Doc, Alvarez got up, grabbed the medical bag from the corner of the room, and checked the morphine and bandages. "I'm gonna take a break. If you guys need me, just holler. But don't bother me unless you're shot," Doc muttered, then sat down on the floor, leaning against the wall, closing his eyes. Tom, Ghost, and Gwyn didn't say a word, as usual. He stepped out into the backyard, placing the M24 on the wooden table outside, beginning to clean each part with absolute focus. Hawk looked through the window, seeing Ghost sitting there, his slender frame as tough as steel. He knew Ghost didn't need a break. He lived in silence, and silence was how he prepared. Hawk muttered, "You guys are still the same, huh? A bunch of crazy old men." Hawk walked into the kitchen and grabbed a can of Budweiser from the fridge. He popped the top, took a sip, and felt the cold rush slide down his throat, waking him up a bit more. He wasn't planning on sleeping, not when Ethan was still in Tijuana, in the hands of Los Zetas. He sat down in a chair, gazing out at the Pacific Ocean through the window. The sound of the waves was steady, but today it didn't bring him any peace. Instead, it felt like the heartbeat of a clock counting down, each second bringing him closer to the line between life and death. Hawk set down the beer can and pulled an old photo from his jacket pocket. It was of him, Sarah, and Ethan at the San Diego harbor 5 years ago. Ethan was just 11 then, grinning ear to ear with a tiny fish in his hand. He remembered that day vividly. Ethan ran up to hug him, shouting, "Grandpa Hawk, you're a superhero. Teach me how to shoot." Hawk had laughed heartily, ruffling the boy's hair. "You're still too little, kiddo. Just wait until you grow up." But now, he wished he had taught Ethan a few tricks. Maybe the kid could have defended himself in that hellhole. He clutched the photo tightly, his nails digging into his palm. Los Zetas weren't your average kidnappers. He had seen what they did to prisoners in past operations, chopping off hands, ripping out hearts, filming it all to send to the victims' families as a warning. The thought of Ethan, with his bright eyes and innocent smile, falling into the hands of those bastards made Hawk's heart feel like it was being crushed. He murmured, "I won't let you go, Ethan. Not ever." Hawk stood up, walked over to the table, and looked back at the map of Tijuana. He traced the smuggling tunnel entrance located 3 miles south of San Diego, leading out near Highway 2D. He remembered the last time he used it, back in 1987, when the Debra team raided a drug stash. The tunnel was narrow and damp, the smell of earth and blood lingering in the air, but it saved their lives. He hoped it was still intact. If not, the plan would fall apart right from the start. He muttered, "We're going in there, fast and quiet. No way out." He recalled the times Ethan visited, sitting on the San Diego beach, asking him about the battles. "Were you scared, Mr. Hawk?" The boy used to ask. He would laugh. "Of course I was, kid, but being scared doesn't mean you run away." Now, he wondered if Ethan was scared, all alone in the hands of Los Zetas, not knowing his grandfather was coming to save him. Hawk gritted his teeth, muttering, "Don't be afraid, Ethan. I won't leave you alone." 12:30 p.m. Hawk clapped his hands to call the team. Bear jumped up from his seat, stretching. "Damn, I'm ready. Hand me the C4, and I'll throw them a blast party." Doc stood up, grabbing the medical bag. "I've checked everything. There's enough morphine and bandages for the whole team. Hope you guys don't use it all." Ghost walked in from the backyard, his M24 slung over his shoulder, his gaze icy. "Guns are ready. Scope's good." Hawk pointed at the pile of weapons on the table. "Everyone grab an AR-15 and 3 magazines. Bear, you take 3 C4S and 2 smoke grenades. Doc, you keep the last 2 grenades and the medical kit. Ghost, you just need the M24. I know you're not a fan of handguns." Bear laughed loudly. "I love this way of dividing things up, but if they have more people, I'm going to need more C4. Hawk replied, "If we need it, I'll get more from Rick. Now, let's check everything." The whole team got to work. Bear stuffed C4 into his shoulder bag, checking the wires. His hands were still as nimble as they were in his youth. He muttered, 3 of these will blow the main gate and the side entrance wide open. They'll run like chickens. Doc strapped on his medical bag, tucked smoke grenades into his belt, and mumbled, I'm too old for this stuff now, but hey, it's for Ethan. Ghost loaded the magazine into the M24, adjusted the scope, and nodded to Hawk. 300 yards. I'll hit every single one. Hawk held the AR-15, pulled back the charging handle, the cold metal under his fingers reminding him of days gone by. He tucked the Colt 1911 into its holster. This old friend would be with him until the end. Hawk looked at the team, his voice steady. We're crossing the border at 2 p.m. through the tunnel. We'll hit Tijuana before sunset, take a short break, then strike at midnight. Ghost, you head up the hill first and clear out the guards. Bear, you'll take down the gate. Doc, you wait at the side entrance. I'll go in and find Ethan. Got it? Bear nodded. Got it? I'll make them scatter. Doc sighed. Got it. But if you guys get shot, don't blame me for being slow. Ghost replied shortly. Got it. 12:50 p.m. The team gathered outside in the yard. Hawk glanced at his watch, feeling the weight of pressure heavy on his chest. 64 hours left there's no room for mistakes. He knew Los Zetas could change everything at any moment, moving Ethan, setting a trap, or killing the kid if they suspected anything. He clenched his fists, looking at the team. You guys don't have to do this. You can go home and live your lives. Bear roared. Damn it. What are you saying, Hawk? I'm not leaving you behind. Ethan is your family, which means he's my family too. Doc chuckled softly. I'm old, but I'm not weak. I'm in. Ghost looked at Hawk, his voice cold. You call I come? We're a team. Hawk nodded, his eyes welling up, but he held it back. Thank you, guys. We're SEALs. No one gets left behind. Hawk walked up to the pickup, opened the truck bed, and did a final check. He turned back, his voice deep. You guys are getting old, and so am I, but they have no idea what it costs to mess with SEAL. Ethan is coming home, I promise. Bear clapped his hands. Damn it, you're making me want to punch someone right now. Doc shook his head. Calm down, Bear. Save your energy. Ghost slung the M24 over his shoulder and climbed into the truck. Hawk stood alone for a moment, watching the team get into the vehicle. He recalled the days back in DevGru, the sleepless nights, the near-death experiences, and the unexpected victories. Now, at the age of 80, he was stepping into another battle, not for his country, but for his family. He murmured, Ethan, you are the reason I live. I will not fail. 1 p.m., the team got into car. Hawk sat behind the wheel, starting the engine. The roar of the motor drowned out the sound of the ocean waves. He looked out at the road, muttering, Tijuana, you better be ready. We're on our way. The car rolled out, carrying 4 old warriors and an unbreakable promise. Mike Bear Russo's old pickup truck rumbled down the dusty road south of San Diego, the roar of the engine drowning out the sound of the ocean breeze. John Hawk Callahan sat behind the wheel, his sharp eyes glued to the road ahead, gripping the steering wheel so tightly his knuckles turned white. The clock in the truck read 2 p.m., right on time for the team to head out across the border to Tijuana. Next to Hawk, Bear fiddled with his C4, muttering, Damn it, I can smell a fight from here. Eddie, Doc, Alvarez, and Tom, Ghost, and Gwen sat in the back seat, silent but tense. Doc checked the medical bag one last time, his voice low. I just hope you guys don't keep me too busy tonight. Ghost, stroking the M24, didn't respond, just gave a slight nod. Hawk glanced in the rear-view mirror, seeing his team of 4 old-timers, but they were 4 undefeated SEAL warriors. He muttered, You guys ready? There's no turning back now. Bear laughed heartily. Ready? I was born for this. After 20 minutes of driving, Hawk stopped near a deserted area about 3 miles from the U.S.-Mexico border. He got out and pointed to a tunnel hidden beneath the weeds. This is the tunnel I was talking about. I used it back in '87. It'll get us close to Highway 2D, just half a mile from the factory. Bear frowned. You sure it won't collapse? I don't want to suffocate underground. Hawk replied, I've checked it out. The drug dealers are still using it. Let's go. The whole team got out of the vehicle, weapons in hand. Hawk took the lead, crouching as he entered the tunnel. The air inside was damp, thick with the smell of earth and diesel. The tunnel was narrow, just wide enough for one person to pass through, with walls reinforced by rotting wood. Bear growled, "Damn it, this place feels like a coffin." Doc chimed in, "Shut up, Bear. I don't want to hear you whining the whole way." Ghost remained silent, moving quietly like a shadow, his M24 slung over his shoulder. They walked about 1,000 yards in the dark, relying only on the light from a few flashlights Hawk carried. The sound of their footsteps echoed, mixed with the heavy breathing of the four old men. Hawk felt a sharp pain in his knees, but he gritted his teeth, refusing to let the team see him slow down. He recalled the last time he was here in 1987, when DevGru raided a drug stash, and this tunnel was the only escape route when everything went south. Now, it was their hope to save Ethan. After 30 minutes, Hawk stopped and pointed to a wooden panel above. "This is the way out." He pushed the panel aside, and the sunset light from Tijuana poured in. The whole team climbed up and stepped out into an open area near the 2D highway. Hawk looked around. Half a mile to the east was the old factory that Rick Morales had pointed out, where Los Zetas might be holding Ethan. He signaled, "Let's take a break here. We'll wait until midnight to make our move." The whole team crouched behind a large bush, about 50 yards from the highway. Bear set down the C4 bag, letting out a sigh. "Damn, that tunnel really messed up my back." "So what now, Hawk?" Hawk replied, "We wait. Ghost, you go ahead and scout a position on the hill, 300 yards east of the factory. When we move in, you take out the guards." Ghost nodded, grabbing his M24, and quietly disappeared into the twilight shadows. Doc sat down and opened the medical bag. "I'll get the morphine and bandages ready. If you guys get shot, don't scream. I can't stand the noise." Bear scoffed. "You worry about yourself. Document. I'll keep them busy enough that you'll just have to sit back and watch." Hawk checked his AR-15, sliding the Colt 1911 into its holster. He glanced at his watch. It was 5:30 p.m. 61 hours left to save Ethan, but he knew tonight was everything. Hawk sat down, leaning against a rock, his eyes fixed on the factory. From here, he could only see its faint outline, a crooked building about 30 feet tall, with a few flickering lights. He muttered, "Ethan, are you in there? Wait for me." Bear sat beside him, patting Hawk on the shoulder. "You good? Old man? Your face looks like you're about to punch someone." Hawk nodded. "I'm fine. It's just, I need the kid to be alive." Bear nodded back. "I get it. We'll bring him home." The sun had completely set, and darkness enveloped Tijuana. The temperature dropped. The air turned biting cold, but the team didn't light a fire. They didn't want to be discovered. Hawk checked his watch. 8 p.m. He stood up and signaled, "Let's move in closer. We'll walk half a mile to the edge of the factory, then wait until midnight." Bear nodded, hoisting the C4 bag. "I'm ready to blow that place sky high." Doc strapped on the medical bag. "I'm in, but you guys better not make me run." The three of them quietly made their way toward the factory, keeping their distance from the highway to avoid the headlights of passing cars. They moved slowly, crouching low, using the bushes as cover. Hawk felt his breath coming in heavy gasps. At 80 years old, he was slowing down, but he didn't stop. He recalled the raid nights from his DevGru days of gunfire, the smell of blood and the adrenaline coursing through his veins. Now, it was all coming back, but this time it wasn't for a mission. It was for family. By 9 p.m., they stopped about 100 yards from the factory. From here, Hawk could see an old building more clearly, its walls rusted, with two main gates and a side entrance in the back. A few shadowy figures with guns patrolled around the gates, the light from the searchlights sweeping across the open space. Hawk muttered, "They've got a lot of guys, maybe 30 to 40, just like Rick said." Bear glanced over Hawk's shoulder. "I see 2 guys at the main gate. My C4 can take care of that." Doc whispered, "I'll cover the side entrance. If you guys need me, just shout." Hawk checked his watch, 9:30 p.m. He turned to the team. "We wait until midnight. Bear, You set the C4 at the main gate and the side entrance when I give the signal. Doc, you're ready at the side entrance. I'll go in while Ghost clears the way. Got it. Bear nodded. Got it. I'll make them panic. Doc sighed. Got it. But don't get yourself killed before I get there. Hawk sat down, gazing at the factory. His heart raced, not out of fear, but for Ethan. He murmured, "You have to hang in there, kid. I'm on my way." The night wind blew through, carrying the scent of dry earth and danger. The team sat still, waiting for the calm before the storm that was about to hit. Darkness enveloped the area around the old factory in Tijuana, with only a few beams from the main gate flickering across the empty lot. John Hawk Callahan crouched behind some bushes, about 100 yards from the factory, gripping his AR-15 tightly. His watch read 11:30 p.m., and there were just 30 minutes left until the raid. Beside him, Mike Bear Russo checked his bag of C4, muttering, "Damn it, I can't wait to blow this place sky high." Eddie Doc Alvarez sat by a side entrance, about 20 yards from Hawk, holding a smoke grenade, whispering, "If you guys make too much noise, I won't hear anyone who needs saving." Hawk looked toward the hill 300 yards east of the factory where Tom, Ghost, and Gwen had been hiding since dusk. He knew Ghost was out there, eyes glued to the scope of his M24, waiting. Hawk whispered into the old radio that the team had brought along. "Ghost, you ready?" Ghost's voice came back cold and steady. "Ready. I see 4 guards at the main gate, 2 at the side entrance, waiting for the go." Hawk nodded, even though Ghost couldn't see him. "Good. When Bear sets off the C4, you fire." Hawk surveyed the factory. The building stood about 30 feet tall, its walls rusted and peeling, with 2 main gates guarded by 4 armed men holding AK-47s. In the back alley, 2 guys stood smoking, the glow of their cigarettes flickering in the night. He counted at least 10 shadows moving inside through the broken window, possibly a total of 30 to 40 armed men, just as Rick Morales had warned. He muttered, "Ethan, were you in there?" His heart raced, not out of fear, but from the pressure of the 60 hours left to save the kid. Tonight was everything. Bear leaned in close to Hawk, his voice low. "I'm gonna plant C4 at the main gate and the side entrance. Once I'm done, you signal Ghost, and then I'll detonate. Sound good?" Hawk nodded. "Yeah, but be careful. There are a lot of them, and I don't want you getting shot before blast." Bear scoffed. "Damn it, if they hit me, I'll take the whole damn crew down to hell with me." Hawk patted Bear on the shoulder. "Go on. I trust you." Bear crouched low, carrying a C4 bag, silently making his way toward the main gate. He moved like a giant shadow, using the bushes and darkness as cover. Hawk held his breath, his eyes tracking Bear's every step. He knew the guy was an explosives expert who had blown up armored vehicles in Afghanistan with just 1 homemade C4. But at 78 years old, Bear wasn't as quick as he used to be. One small mistake, and the whole plan would fall apart. Bear crouched down behind a rock about 10 yards from the main gate. He pulled out a C4 explosive, attached to wires, and then gently tossed it toward the base of the gate, where the bomb landed just 5 feet away from the 2 guards. Hawk whispered into the radio, "Ghost, have you seen Bear yet?" Ghost replied, "Yeah, I see him. I'll take the shot if they spot him." Bear continued to crawl toward a side entrance, 50 yards away, and placed the second C4 near the fence. One of the guards of the side entrance turned his head, as if he heard something, but Bear quickly dropped flat, hiding in the shadows. Hawk gripped the AR-15 tightly, sweat streaming down his forehead. He muttered, "Be careful, Bear. Don't get yourself killed." Bear crawled back after 10 minutes, panting. "It's done, Hawk. 2 C4S ready to blow. When do you want to go?" Hawk glanced at his watch 11:50 p.m. He replied, "Wait 10 more minutes. Right at midnight, you set it off." Bear nodded, holding a remote detonator. "I'm going to give them a hell of a fireworks show." Doc moved closer to Hawk, whispering, "Is Bear done yet? I'm ready at the side entrance. If you guys need me, just shout." Hawk nodded. "We're all set. You keep the smoke grenade handy. If we get pinned down, you throw it so we can pull back." Doc nodded. "Got it. But don't you dare die before I get there." 11:55 p.m. Hawk glanced at his watch, feeling the weight of pressure on his chest. He heard footsteps in the factory as a group of armed men appeared, flashlights sweeping the area. He whispered into the radio, "Ghost, do you see anything?" Ghost replied, "5 more just came out the main gate. That's a total of 9 over there now. I can take the shot." Hawk growled, "They're getting suspicious. Bear, are you ready?" Bear held up the detonator. "Ready? I'm just waiting for your command." Hawk looked at the Bear team with a confident smile, while Doc maintained the calm demeanor of a battlefield doctor. He knew Ghost was on the hill, ready to pull the trigger. He murmured, "Ethan, you're up." Taking a deep breath, he spoke firmly. "Bear, in 5 minutes, you make your move. Ghost, when the C4 goes off, take out all the guards. Doc, wait for me and Bear at the side entrance. I'll go in." Bear nodded. "Got it." "I'll make them panic." Doc whispered, "Understood. Be careful." 12 a.m., Hawk signaled. Bear pressed the detonation button. A thunderous explosion rocked the factory as the main gate erupted in flames and smoke, debris flying everywhere. 2 seconds later, the second C4 at the side entrance detonated, tearing through the fence and knocking 2 guards to the ground. Screams erupted from inside. Chaos began. Hawk heard gunfire in the distance. Ghost had opened fire. 1 gate guard fell. Then the second, struck by a bullet from the M, 300 yards away. Hawk stood up shouting, "Bear, follow me. Doc, cover the side entrance." Bear laughed loudly. "Damn, I love this." He grabbed the AR-15 and sprinted after Hawk toward the factory, engulfed in thick clouds of dust. Doc tossed a smoke grenade toward the side entrance, creating a shroud of fog. Hawk felt the adrenaline coursing through his veins. He was no longer the 80-year-old man, but a SEAL warrior, ready to charge into hell to save his grandson. Thick clouds of dust enveloped the old factory in Tijuana after 2 C4 explosions set off by Mike Bear Russo. Screams and gunfire echoed everywhere, and the flames from the main gate blazed bright against the pitch-black night. John Hawk Callahan dashed through the smoke, his AR-15 held high, with Bear right beside him. A wild grin plastered across his face. "Damn it, Hawk, I love this." Bear shouted, his voice cutting through the chaos. Hawk didn't respond, his eyes locked onto the building ahead, where Ethan might be held captive. They made their way through the wreckage of the main gate, where 4 guards had been taken out by Tom, Ghost, and Gwen from a hill 300 yards away. Hawk heard the steady crack of the sniper rifle as Ghost worked, each shot ringing out like a death sentence. Another guard fell near the entrance, blood pooling on the ground. Hawk shouted into the radio, "Ghost, keep clearing the way. We're going in." Ghost's cold voice came back. "Copy that. 3 more at the main gate. I'll take care of it." Hawk and Bear crept up to the factory wall, about 10 yards from the main entrance. Smoke from Eddie Doc, Alvarez's grenade at the side entrance, billowed out, obscuring the view of the Los Zetas. Hawk signaled, "Bear, you provide cover fire. I'm going in." Bear nodded, raising his AR-15 and squeezed the trigger, unleashing a rapid-fire barrage that sent bullets slamming into the walls and ground, causing the 3 remaining guards to panic and retreat inside. Hawk crouched low and charged through the main door, his heart pounding in his chest. Inside the factory, the air was thick with the smell of gunpowder and machine oil. The building stretched about 200 yards, filled with wooden crates and abandoned machinery. Hawk spotted around 15 Los Zetas gunmen scattering, shouting in Spanish, "Gringos! There's an intruder." He ducked behind a wooden crate, watching them gather near the center of the factory, where a staircase led down to the basement. Hawk muttered, "Ethan, if you're here, you're definitely down there." Bear charged in after Hawk, throwing a smoke grenade toward the group of gunmen. "Damn it, there are too many of them." Bear shouted as the white smoke erupted, engulfing the central area. Hawk seized a moment, firing a burst from his AR-15, taking down 2 men, blood splattering against the wall. But the Los Zetas retaliated instantly, the roar of AK-47s echoing, bullets whizzing past Hawk's head, embedding themselves in a wooden crate just inches away from him. Hawk felt a sharp pain in his shoulder as a bullet grazed him, tearing through his jacket and ripping a line across his skin. He gritted his teeth, muttering, "Damn it, I'm too old for this." But he didn't stop. He crawled to a concrete pillar and returned fire. Bear shouted, "Hawk, are you okay?" "I'll keep them busy." He threw his last C4 toward the gunman, detonating from a distance with a blast that shook the factory, dust flying everywhere, 3 more of them falling in the rubble. Hawk shouted into the radio, "Doc, where are you?" "I've been grazed." Doc's voice came through. "I'm at the side entrance. The smoke is too thick. I'm on my way, don't die before I get there." Hawk nodded, even though Doc couldn't see him, and kept firing. He took down another guy, but the ammo in his AR-15 was running low. He pulled out his trusty Colt 1911 and fired 2 shots, hitting a guy charging at him in the chest. Bear laughed loudly. "You still got some tricks up your sleeve, old man." But the situation was deteriorating rapidly. More than 20 remaining gunmen regrouped, splitting into 2 teams, one providing cover fire, while the other advanced toward Hawk and Bear. Hawk muttered, "We're outnumbered." He shouted into the radio, "Ghost, do you see us? Clear the way." Ghost replied, "I see you. I'm firing from the east window. Hold on." A second later, the sound of the M24 echoed. One man went down, and then another, his head shattered. Taking advantage of the smoke and chaos, Hawk signaled to Bear, "I'm heading down to the basement. You keep them busy up here." Bear nodded. "Go. I'll give them a bullet party." He fired off a long burst of rounds, forcing the gunman to take cover. Hawk sprinted toward the stairs, kicked over a wooden crate blocking his path, and dug down. The dark basement was barely illuminated by a few weak, hanging lights. Hawk moved slowly, his Colt 1911 held high, ears tuned to every sound. The gunfire above still echoed, but down here, he could hear the faint sound of someone moaning. He muttered, "Ethan?" He approached a rusty iron door at the end of the hallway. Noticing the lock had been broken, he pushed the door open and stepped inside. Inside was a small, filthy room, filled with the overwhelming stench of blood and sweat. Hawk spotted a tiny figure tied to a chair, head bowed. Ethan. The 16-year-old had messy hair and a face covered in bruises, but he was still alive. Hawk rushed over, kneeling down. "Ethan, it's me. Are you okay?" Ethan lifted his head, his eyes clouded with pain, whispering, "Mr. Hawk, you really came." Hawk sliced through the ropes with his knife, pulling the boy into a tight embrace. "I promise I'll get you home, kid. Now let's go." But before Hawk could get to his feet, heavy footsteps echoed from the stairs. A gruff voice growled in Spanish, "Damn gringo, you're dead meat." Hawk turned around to see a big guy, definitely Hector, the boss of the Los Zetas gang here, coming down with a handgun in his hand. Hawk shoved Ethan back, raising his Colt 1911. "You want to play? Come on." The basement of the old factory in Tijuana was shrouded in darkness, illuminated only by the faint light from a dangling bulb casting a tense scene. John Hawk Callahan stood protectively in front of Ethan, his Colt 1911 raised high, eyes locked onto Hector, the massive Los Zetas boss standing in the doorway. Hector towered over 6 feet, muscles rippling, gripping a Beretta handgun, his gaze fiery. He roared in a mix of Spanish and English. "Damn gringo, you dare to come in here? You and the kid are gonna die." Hawk pushed Ethan behind him, his voice low. "If you want the kid, you have to go through me first." Ethan trembled, whispering, "Mr. Hawk, be careful." Hawk didn't turn around, just signaled, "Stay put, kid. I've got this." Hector sneered, raising his gun. "You're old man. I'll blow your head off like shooting a dog." Without waiting for the guy to pull the trigger, Hawk lunged to the left, firing 2 shots from his Colt 1911. The bullets grazed Hector's shoulder, making him scream in pain as blood soaked through his shirt. But he quickly retaliated with a shot from his Beretta that slammed into the wall just inches from Hawk, sending concrete debris flying everywhere. Hawk rolled behind a wooden crate, pulling Ethan down with him. He muttered, "Damn it, this guy's tougher than I thought." Hector shouted, "How long can you hide? I'm going to tear you apart." Hawk gasped for breath, his left shoulder bleeding from a bullet, grazed earlier on the floor above. At 80 years old, he wasn't as quick as he used to be, but his combat experience was something Hector couldn't match. He picked up a rusty piece of metal from the floor and hurled it hard toward the light bulb. The sound of shattering glass echoed as the room plunged into complete darkness. Hector cursed. "What kind of game are you playing, gringo?" Hawk whispered to Ethan. "Crawl over to that corner and hide. Don't make a sound." Ethan nodded, trembling as he crawled toward the corner of the room, his breathing blending with the thumping heartbeat of Hawk. Hawk moved silently, relying on memories from his days in Devgru. Darkness was a friend to his seal. He heard the heavy footsteps of Hector, then the sound of the guy crashing into a wooden crate about 5 yards away. Hawk aimed for the sound and fired a shot. Hector's scream echoed as he was hit in the thigh, blood pouring out. But Hector didn't go down. He charged toward the gunfire, crashing into Hawk and sending both of them tumbling to the floor. The Colt flew from Hawk's hand, rolling into a dark corner as metal clanged against the concrete. Hawk lay on the floor, Hector pinning him down, the brute's hand gripping his throat with terrifying strength. At 80 years old, Hawk felt his body unable to withstand this giant. His throat was constricted, his breath growing weaker. He muttered through clenched teeth, "You think I'm going to die that easily?" He struck hard at the wound on Hector's thigh, causing the giant howl in pain, his grip loosening just a bit. Hawk seized the opportunity, driving his knee sharply into Hector's stomach, knocking him to the side, and the two of them rolled on the dusty, debris-strewn floor. The sound of heavy breathing mixed with curses echoed in the darkness. Hector swung his arm, hitting Hawk's injured shoulder, causing him to groan in pain as blood soaked through his jacket. But Hawk didn't back down. He recalled his day's training as a SEAL, when he had taken down a guy twice his size in close combat with skill. He grabbed Hector's hair, yanking his head down to the floor with a loud crack. But Hector still growled, his hands groping for Hawk's neck once more. Hawk stepped back, breathing heavily, fumbling in the dark for his Colt. Ethan whispered from the corner of the room, "Mr. Hawk, to your right." Hawk reached out, feeling the cold barrel of the gun amidst the rubble. He grasped it, but before he could raise it, Hector charged at him like a mad beast, pinning Hawk down once more. The man raised a dagger high in his hand, the blade glinting in the dim light, filtering through the crack in the door. "Die, gringo!" Hector roared, stabbing down with all his might. Hawk leaned away just in time, the knife grazing his shoulder and embedding itself deep into the floor just 2 inches from his neck, vibrating from the force of the thrust. Hawk screamed, using every ounce of strength to push Hector away, his hand raising the Colt 1911 to fire a shot right into the man's chest. Hector let out a howl, falling backward, blood gushing from the wound like a river, but he still struggled to get up, clutching his chest, his eyes wild. "You can't win!" Hawk gritted his teeth, without hesitation firing a second shot that pierced through Hector's head, putting an end to it all. The man collapsed to the floor, motionless, blood pooling around his massive body. Hawk gasped for breath, rising to his feet, his hand clutching his bleeding left shoulder. He staggered over to Ethan, kneeling beside the boy. "Ethan, are you okay? Talk to me." Ethan hugged him tightly, sobbing, "Mr. Hawk, I thought you were dead. I was so scared." Hawk stroked the boy's hair, his voice hoarse from pain and emotion. "I promise I'll get you home, kid. Now get up, we have to go." He quickly checked Ethan, who was bruised all over, with a few cuts on his hands from the ropes, but nothing life-threatening. He murmured, "Thank God, you're still alive." Hawk helped Ethan to his feet, pulling the boy out of the filthy room. He moved toward the door, listening to the gunfire from upstairs still echoing fiercely, mixed with screams and the sound of shattering glass. He shouted into the radio, "Bear, where are you?" "I got Ethan." Bear's voice crackled through, interrupted by the gunfire. "I'm at the front door. There are too many of them. Hawk, Doc is coming to pull out." Hawk nodded, lifting Ethan up the stairs, each step sending a jolt of pain through his shoulder, but he didn't care. Ethan was everything. The upper floor was still a battlefield, shrouded in thick smoke, with bullets flying back and forth between Bear and the Los Zetas gang. Hawk saw Bear crouch behind a concrete pillar, providing cover fire, shouting, "Damn it, Hawk, you're too slow. Get the kid over here." Hawk grabbed Ethan and sprinted to the rubble, bullets whizzing past his legs, tearing through his pants, but he gritted his teeth and kept pushing toward the side exit 20 yards away. He yelled, "Doc, where's the side exit?" Doc's voice crackled over the radio. "I'm here. The smoke is clearing, run." Hawk spotted Doc near the side entrance. The guy just threw another smoke grenade for cover. He supported Ethan and ran toward that direction, feeling like his legs were made of lead. Bear followed closely behind, shooting as he ran, shouting, "You can't get away, you bastards!" Gunfire from Ghost continued to echo in the distance, each shot taking down an enemy, clearing the way for the team to retreat. Hawk murmured, "You guys are amazing. Now let's get home." If your heart beats for the unbreakable bond of teamwork and the unstoppable love of family, hit like and subscribe right now. The story of Hawk and Ethan has only just begun, and the Legendary Narratives channel needs you to join us in sharing more inspiring journeys like this. Thank you. The old factory in Tijuana was still engulfed in chaos, with thick clouds of smoke from Eddie Doc, Alvarez's smoke, grenades mixing with the flames from Mike Bear Russo's C4 explosion. John Hawk Callahan supported Ethan as they ran toward side exit, 20 yards away, his legs aching from age and the bullet graze on his thigh. Ethan clung to him, his breath weak but his eyes shining with hope. "Mr. Hawk, I knew you would come." Hawk gritted his teeth, his voice hoarse. "I promise, kid. Now run." Bear sprinted ahead, his AR-15 firing bursts of bullets at the Los Zetas gang chasing them. "Damn it, there are as many of them as ants." "Hawk, hurry up." Bear shouted, bullets ricocheting off the walls and ground, forcing the enemies to take cover. Doc stood at a side entrance, tossing another smoke grenade to provide cover. "Run this way. I'll hold the line." A thick cloud of white smoke erupted, obscuring the gunman's vision, giving Hawk and Ethan a few precious seconds. Hawk darted to the side path, pulling Ethan along, and they both tumbled to the ground after crashing into a pile of broken wooden crates. Doc knelt beside them, quickly checking. "Hawk, are you hurt? Your shoulder's bleeding." Hawk shook his head, breathing heavily. "I'm fine. Take care of the kid first." Doc turned to Ethan, took some gauze from a medical kit, and wrapped it around the cut on the boy's arm. "You're a really tough kid. Just rest for a bit. We'll get you out of here." Ethan nodded, his eyes welling up. "Thank you, Doc." Bear rushed in, hiding behind the wooden crate with the team, firing another round toward the factory. "They're still on our tail. Hawk, we need to pull out now." Hawk nodded, shouting into the radio, "Ghost, do you see us? Clear the way." Tom Ghost, Nguyen's voice came through cold and steady. "I see you. I've taken out 5 guys near the side entrance. Run west for 100 yards, and I'll cover you." Hawk signaled. "Bear, Doc, let's go." Ghost is clearing the path. The whole team stood up, Hawk supporting Ethan, Doc carrying the medical bag, and Bear bringing up the rear, providing cover fire. They dashed through the smoke, the steady crack of Ghost's M24 ringing out as each shot took down an enemy from 300 yards away. One of the Los Zetas burst out of the smoke, raising his AK-47, but before he could pull the trigger, his head exploded and he collapsed. Hawk muttered, "Ghost, you're still the deadly Ghost." The team ran west, about 50 yards from the factory, but the sound of footsteps and screams from Los Zetas echoed behind them. Hawk felt his legs heavy as lead, his left shoulder throbbing with pain, blood soaking through his jacket. He glanced at Ethan, seeing the kid gasping for breath, but still pushing to run, and he gritted his teeth. "I'm not leaving you behind, kid." Bear shouted, "Damn it, they're too close. I'm out of AR-15 ammo." He pulled out his backup handgun, firing a few shots backward to slow down their pursuers. Doc ran alongside Hawk, muttering, "I hear a vehicle. They've got an armored truck. Hawk." Hawk turned his head and saw the headlights of an armored truck emerging from the factory, less than 200 yards away. The engine roared, and a machine gun mounted on the vehicle opened fire, bullets slamming into ground just 10 feet away from the team. Hawk shouted, "Take cover." The whole team dove into a large bush, hitting the ground as bullets whizzed overhead. Hawk shouted into the radio, "Ghost, "Do you see the car?" "Take out the driver." Ghost replied, "I see it. Hold on, the glass is too thick." A second later, the sound of the M24 echoed as the bullet pierced through the glass, and the driver slumped over. The car lost control, crashing into a pile of wooden crates about 50 yards away, erupting into flames. Bear laughed loudly. "Damn, Ghost, you're a genius." But the joy was short-lived as 10 armed Los Zetas gunmen rushed out from the factory, firing at the team. Hawk pulled Ethan down to the ground, firing back with his Colt 1911 and taking one guy down. But he was almost out of ammo. He muttered, "Damn it, we're not getting out of this if it keeps up." Doc tossed their last smoke grenade toward the enemy. "Run. The smoke will hold them back." The smoke erupted, shrouding the gunmen, but Hawk knew it was only temporary. They would catch up soon. Hawk stood up, supporting Ethan. "Can you run?" Ethan nodded, even though his legs were shaking. "I can try, Mr. Hawk." Hawk turned to the team. "We need to run back to the tunnel half a mile away. Ghost, you follow us from a hill and hold them off." Ghost replied, "Got it. I'm on the move." Hawk heard the M24 gunfire continue to echo, each shot slowing down the enemy. But he knew Ghost couldn't keep shooting forever. He was running low on ammo too. The whole team dashed through the bushes, sprinting southwest toward the smuggling tunnel. Hawk felt his breath shortening, his shoulders and legs aching like crazy, but he didn't stop. Ethan was the reason he was still alive. Bear ran alongside him, muttering, "I'm too old for this crap, but damn it, I'm not leaving you, Hawk." Doc followed behind, panting, "You guys slow down a bit. I can't run a marathon anymore." The sound of motorcycles echoed from a distance. Hawk turned his head and saw 3 Los Zetas members on a gun-mounted bike, chasing him down from 300 yards away. He shouted, "Bear, do you have anything left?" Bear shook his head. "Out of C4, out of grenades. Just this pistol." Hawk gritted his teeth and fired 2 shots from his Colt 1911, sending one guy tumbling off the bike, but the other 2 kept charging forward. He yelled into the radio, "Ghost, motorcycle. Shoot." Ghost replied, "Got it. I'll take one down, but there's still another." A gunshot rang out, and the second guy fell, but the last one was still hot on their tail. The machine gun on the bike firing nonstop. Hawk shoved Ethan to ground, bullets whizzing just inches above their heads. He muttered, "Damn, that was too close." He fired the last shot from his Colt 1911, hitting the tire and sending the vehicle flipping over, the driver crashing to the ground, motionless. Hawk let out a sigh of relief, but the distant sound of footsteps made it clear that the Los Zetas weren't giving up. He got to his feet, pulling Ethan up. "Keep running, kid. We're almost to the tunnel." Thick darkness enveloped the area near the 2D highway in Tijuana, with only the distant beams of headlights from the Los Zetas cutting through the night. John Hawk Callahan pulled Ethan along as they dashed through the bushes, less than 200 yards from the smuggling tunnel. His left shoulder was bleeding, and his leg throbbed from a grazing bullet, but he didn't stop. Ethan clung tightly to his hand, his breath coming in gasps. "Mr. Hawk?" "I'm so tired." Hawk gritted his teeth, his voice hoarse. "Hang in there, kid. The tunnel's right up ahead. We're almost out." Mike, Bear, Russo ran behind, his backup pistol firing shots at the group of gunmen chasing them about 300 yards away. "Damn it, they're as stubborn as leeches." Bear shouted, a bullet grazing his shoulder, making him curse. "Shit, I'm too old for this." "Eddie, Doc." Alvarez ran alongside him, panting, a medical bag slung over his shoulder. "Bear, stop complaining. As long as I can keep running. You better keep up." Hawk yelled into the radio, "Ghost, where are you?" "We're close to the tunnel." Tom Ghost Nguyen's voice came through. "I'm on the hill, about 400 yards from you. I'm providing cover fire. There's still 10 of them on your tail." The sound of the M24 rifle echoed steadily from a far one shot, then 2. 2 Los Zetas fell in the bushes, blood soaking into the dry ground. Hawk muttered, "Ghost, you're a lifesaver." But then the roar of an engine broke to the sound of another Los Zetas truck barreling in from the factory, less than 500 yards away from the team. Hawk shouted, They've got another vehicle. Move it. Bear turned back, firing off the last of his magazine from his handgun, but the bullets couldn't penetrate the truck's steel armor. I'm out of ammo, Hawk. What now? Bear bellowed. Hawk looked around, seeing the tunnel just 100 yards ahead, hidden beneath a tangle of weeds. He pulled Ethan along faster, shouting, "Doc, do you have any smoke grenades left?" Doc shook his head. "We're out. Only have the medical bag." Hawk gritted his teeth. "Then run. Ghost, take out the driver." Ghost replied, "I'm trying, but the glass is too thick." A gunshot rang out, but the vehicle kept barreling forward. The machine gun on it firing relentlessly, bullets striking the ground just 20 feet away from the team. Hawk shoved Ethan down, bullets whizzing over their heads. Tearing through the bushes behind them, Bear rushed over, pulling Hawk and Ethan to their feet. "Damn it, get up. We can't die here." Hawk nodded, helping Ethan to keep running, his legs nearly giving out from exhaustion. Ghost fired another shot, the bullet piercing through the glass, and the driver slumped over, the vehicle losing control and flipping over about 150 yards away, bursting into flames. Hawk sighed in relief. "Nice job, Ghost." But the infantry gunmen were still in pursuit, now only 200 yards away, the sounds of shouting and AK-47 gunfire ringing out fiercely. Hawk led the team to the mouth of the tunnel, pushing aside the wooden cover at the entrance. "Go in. Hurry." Ethan crawled in first, followed by Hawk, then Doc and Bear. The tunnel was cramped and damp, the smell of earth and diesel overwhelming, but it was their last hope. Hawk shouted into the radio, "Ghost, we're in the tunnel. You need to pull back." Ghost replied, "Copy that. I'll fire a few more rounds and then head your way in San Diego." The sound of the M24 rifle echoed one last time, taking down 2 more pursuers before falling silent. Inside the bunker, Hawk supported Ethan as they moved forward, his hands trembling from blood loss and exhaustion. He murmured, "Come on, kid. Just 1,000 yards to home." Ethan nodded, even though his legs felt like lead. "I can do it, Mr. Hawk." Bear brought up the rear, glancing back at the entrance. "Damn it. What if they come into the bunker?" Doc replied, "I don't hear any footsteps. Ghost must be keeping them busy." But in less than 5 minutes, sounds echoed from the entrance as a few Los Zetas had found the tunnel, flashlights sweeping through the darkness. Hawk muttered, "Damn it, they're persistent." He turned around, signaling, "Bear, you blocked them. Doc, support Ethan." Bear nodded, pulling out a dagger. "I'm out of ammo, but I'll slow them down." He turned back, hiding behind a reinforced log, waiting. Doc supported Ethan, whispering, "Keep going, kid. I'm right here." Hawk led Ethan forward, hearing Bear cursing behind them. "Get over here, you bastard." A scream rang out as Bear stabbed a Los Zetas member, dropping to the ground. But the sound of an AK-47 right after made it clear he wasn't alone. Hawk shouted, "Bear, fall back." Bear sprinted back, panting heavily. "I took one down, but there are still 4 of them. We need to move fast." Hawk nodded, urging Ethan to go faster, even though every step felt like torture for him. After 20 minutes of running through the tunnel, Hawk spotted a faint light ahead marking the exit in San Diego, just 3 miles from the border. He murmured, "We made it." He pushed the wooden panel aside, helped Ethan climb up, and Doc and Bear followed closely behind. They tumbled out into the wasteland. It was still dark, but the distant glow of San Diego hinted that dawn was approaching. Hawk checked his watch. 1:30 a.m. They had 58 hours left, but they were free. Hawk sat down, holding Ethan close, sighing in relief. "You're safe now, kid." Ethan hugged him tightly, crying, "I knew you would save me. I love you, Mr. Hawk." Hawk stroked the boy's hair, his eyes misty. "I love you too, Ethan." Doc knelt down, bandaging Hawk's shoulder. "You need to rest, old man. Your shoulder is really bad." Hawk scoffed. "I can manage, document." Bear plopped down, muttering, "Damn, I thought we were done for. Where's Ghost?" The sound of footsteps echoed from afar. Ghost emerged from the bushes, M24 slung over his shoulder, walking calmly. He nodded. I took down 8 of them. The rest ran off when the truck blew. Hawk stood up and shook Ghost's hand. Thanks, Ghost. We owe you one. Ghost smirked, a rare smile. No debts. We're a team. Hawk looked at the bear team with a tired smile. Doc with the calmness of a doctor. Ghost with a cold yet warm gaze. He murmured, You guys are getting old, and so am I, but we're still SEALs. He turned to Ethan. Let's go, kid. Time to head home. The whole team walked toward the pickup, the sound of San Diego waves echoing from afar, like a welcoming call back from hell. The sky over San Diego began to brighten as the first rays of sunlight broke over the horizon, painting the surface of the Pacific Ocean in golden hues. Mike Bear Russo's old pickup truck was parked on a patch of land 3 miles from the U.S.-Mexico border, its body caked in dirt after the escape from Tijuana. John Hawk Callahan leaned against the truck bed, cradling his grandson Ethan in his arms. His breath was heavy, but his eyes sparkled with joy. Ethan had fallen asleep on his shoulder, his face marked with bruises yet peaceful, as if the nightmare had finally passed. Hawk looked at the clock. 2 a.m. They had just escaped the smuggling tunnel 30 minutes ago, after a brutal night fighting against Los Zetas. His left shoulder was still bleeding from a grazed wound, and his legs ached from running. But he didn't care. He murmured, You're safe now, kid. That's all I need. He stroked Ethan's hair, feeling warm spread in his chest for the first time in 72 hours. He felt a sense of relief. Bear plopped down on the ground next to the truck, leaning against the tire, panting. Damn, I thought we were done for when that truck came barreling at us. I'm too old for this kind of stuff, Hawk. He let out a hearty laugh, though his voice was raspy from exhaustion. Eddie Doc, Alvarez knelt beside Hawk, opening the medical kit and pulling out bandages to wrap around his shoulder. You need a rest, Hawk. Your shoulder looks like it got run over. Let me take care of it. Hawk scoffed. I can handle it, document. Take care of the kid first. Doc nodded, checking on Ethan. He's fine, just worn out and a few cuts. You're good to go, old man. Tom, Ghost, and Gwen stood a few yards away, his M24 resting on his shoulder, his cold gaze sweeping across the barren land. He had just taken down 8 Los Zetas to clear a path for the team's retreat, and now he looked like he had never left the battlefield. Hawk glanced at Ghost and nodded. Thanks, Ghost. We owe you big time this round. Ghost smirked, a rare smile crossing his face. No debts here. We're a team. Hawk took his phone out of his jacket pocket, his hands trembling as he dialed his daughter Sarah's number. The phone rang twice before Sarah's voice came through, choked with emotion. Dad? Are you okay? Where's Ethan? Hawk took a deep breath, his voice steady and warm. Sarah, I'm okay. Ethan is here with me. The boy is safe now. There was silence on the other end for a moment. Then Sarah's sobs broke free. Oh my God, Dad. Thank you. I thought I lost him. How could you? Hawk interrupted, his voice steady. Don't cry, Sarah. I promise I'll bring the boy back. And I will. Just stay put. We're on our way home. Sarah sobbed. Dad, you're getting old. How can you do this? I don't know how to thank you. Hawk chuckled softly. Family is the one thing I won't leave behind, Sarah. Just rest. We'll be back soon. He hung up, looking at Ethan sleeping in his arms, murmuring, You're worth everything, kid. Bear answered the call, patting Hawk on the shoulder. You really are the most stubborn old man I've ever known. Sarah must be crying her eyes out at home. Hawk nodded. She's worried about Ethan. So am I, but it's over now. Doc interjected. It's not over, Hawk. You need to get to the hospital. Your shoulder is infected if you don't take care of it. Hawk shook his head. I can make it home. Let's get Ethan back first. Hawk looked at his team of 4 old SEAL warriors who had lived and died together 40 years ago, now gathered once more for a call to action. Bear sat there, his shirt torn, his shoulder bleeding from a grazing bullet wound, but a smile still lit up his face. Doc, though exhausted, was checking the medical kit, ready to bandage anyone in need. Ghost stood still, his gaze sharp as ever, as if 75 years couldn't slow him down. Hawk muttered, You guys are old, and so am I, but we can still get it done. Bear laughed heartily. Damn it, Hawk, are you calling us old? I just blew that factory to pieces, and Ghost was shooting like a machine. We're not done yet. Doc shook his head. I'm done. Running out of that bunker nearly took my breath away. But for Ethan, I wouldn't change a thing. Ghost walked over, sat down next to Hawk, and said simply, Ethan is your family. That means he's my family, too. We don't leave anyone behind. Hawk looked at each person, a warm feeling mixed with pride swelling inside him. He recalled the days in Devgru, the sleepless nights in Afghanistan, the near-death experiences in Somalia, and the brotherhood that had pulled him through it all. Now, at the twilight of his life, they stood together again, not for a mission, but for a promise to their families. He spoke in a deep voice. You guys are the best team I've ever had. Thank you for not leaving me behind. Bear clapped his hands. Damn it. Quit being so sentimental, Hawk. I'm hungry. Let's go home and grab something to eat. Hawk stood up, helped Ethan into the truck. He opened the front door, set the boy down in the passenger seat, then turned to the team. Get in, we're heading home. Bear climbed into the back, muttering, I'm sitting back here to cool off. Drive on, old man. Doc settled into the back seat. While Ghost quietly took the seat next to Document, Hawk started the engine, the roar of the motor breaking the silence of the desolate land. He glanced in the rear-view mirror, seeing his team worn out, ragged, but alive. The car rolled toward San Diego, just 5 miles away. Hawk drove slowly, his hands trembling on the steering wheel, but his eyes were bright with excitement. He looked at Ethan, seeing the boy sound asleep, and murmured, You're the reason I'm alive, kid. The distant sound of the ocean echoed back, like a welcoming call after the storm. Hawk knew this journey wasn't over. He needed to get Ethan back to Sarah, needed to tend to the wounds, but in this moment, he felt at peace. Bear shouted from the back of the truck, Hawk, what do you think? Retire for the second time, or take on one more job? Hawk scoffed. I'm done here, Bear, but if you guys want to throw down, just call me. Doc chimed in, Come on, you two? I want to catch some serious sleep after this. Ghost stayed quiet, but the corners of his mouth lifted in a rare sign of satisfaction. Hawk looked down the road ahead, the lights of San Diego gradually coming into view. He murmured, We did it. Let's go home. The car sped into the darkness, carrying 4 old warriors and a boy, a living testament that the SEAL spirit never dies, no matter how much time passes. Mike Bear Russo's old pickup truck rolled along the coastal road of San Diego. The roar of the engine blended with the crashing waves of the Pacific Ocean. John Hawk Callahan sat behind the wheel, his eyes glued to the road ahead. Even though his left shoulder throbbed and his body felt drained after the battle in Tijuana, Ethan sat beside him, his head resting against the window, fast asleep after the harrowing hours spent in the hands of Los Zetas. Hawk glanced at the boy, murmuring, You're safe now, kid. That's all that matters. The clock in the truck reads 2:45 a.m. Dawn hasn't fully arrived yet, but the faint light from the east is starting to paint the sky golden. Bear is sitting in the truck bed, shouting to the window, Hawk, you're driving like an old lady. Get us home fast. I'm starving to death here. Hawk smirks, his voice raspy. Calm down, Bear. I don't want to wake the kid. Eddie Doc Alvarez is slumped in the back seat, mumbling, I just want to sleep. Stop yelling, Bear, I'm really tired. Tom Ghost. Gwyn sat next to Doc, silent as usual, the M24 resting on his thigh. He gazed out the window, his expression cold yet calm, as if he had just returned from a routine trip rather than a life-or-death battle. Hawk glanced in the rear-view mirror, seeing his team ragged, exhausted, but alive. He muttered, You guys did great. We made it. The car drove another 2 miles, reaching the small neighborhood where Hawk lived. He stopped the car in front of the familiar wooden house, the streetlight casting a glow on the old roof. Hawk turned off the engine and sighed. We're here. He opened the door and helped Ethan out of the car, the boy waking up and rubbing his eyes. Mr. Hawk, are we home now? Hawk nodded, ruffling Ethan's hair. Yeah, kid, you're home. Bear jumped down from the truck bed, stretching. Damn, we finally made it. I need a cold beer right now. The door swung open before Hawk could knock. Sarah rushed out, her hair a mess, her eyes red from crying. She shouted, "Ethan!" and wrapped her arms around the boy, sobbing, "My son, are you okay? I thought I lost you." Ethan hugged his mom tightly, his voice trembling. "Mom, Mr. Hawk, save me. I'm fine." Sarah turned to Hawk and ran to hug him. "Dad, thank you." "I don't know what to say." Hawk hugged Sarah, patting her shoulder, his voice deep. "Don't cry anymore, Sarah. The boy is here, and that's all I wanted." Sarah stepped back, looking at him, noticing his shoulders covered in blood and his clothes torn. "Dad, you're hurt. How could you? You're getting old. How could you do this?" Hawk chuckled softly. "Family is the one thing I won't leave behind, Sarah. I'm fine. We're all fine." He turned back to the team, seeing Bear, Doc, and Ghost standing behind him, each looking weary but satisfied. Sarah wiped her tears, looking at the team. "You guys, thank you so much for saving my son. I don't know how to repay you." Bear laughed heartily, patting Sarah on the shoulder. "Kid, your dad is the most stubborn old man I know. We just tore apart Tijuana to bring that kid back. Just give me a beer and we're good." Doc chimed in. "I'd rather get some sleep, but it's all good, Sarah, we're a team." Ghost stood still, just nodding slightly, his gaze cold yet warm. Sarah helped Ethan into the house and turned back to shout, "Dad, you guys come on in. I'll make coffee for everyone." Hawk nodded, signaling to the team, "Come on in, you guys. Let's take a break and figure things out." Bear was the first to step inside, mumbling, "Coffee's fine, but I still want a beer more." Doc followed behind, dragging the medical bag. "I need to wrap your shoulder. Hawk, don't refuse me again." Ghost entered last, quietly setting the M24 down by the door. Hawk sat down in the armchair in the living room, while Ethan lay on the sofa next to Sarah, the kid having fallen asleep from exhaustion. Sarah brewed coffee and brought out the team, her voice choked with emotion. "Dad, tell me what happened. How did you save Ethan? I can't believe it." Hawk took a sip of coffee, glanced at the team, and began to recount. "We crossed the border through a tunnel, stormed into the Los Zetas factory in Tijuana. Bear blew the gate, Ghost shot from a distance. Doc covered our exit, and I went in to find Ethan. We exchanged gunfire. I took down the boss, and then we ran back here." Sarah's eyes widened. "Dad, Los Zetas? Those guys are notorious. You're getting old. Why don't you call the police?" Hawk shook his head. "The police won't make it in time, Sarah. I have 72 hours, and I'm not letting that kid die at their hands." Bear chimed in. "Damn it, Sarah, your dad is a legend. I throw C4. Ghost shoots like a machine, and Doc saves our asses from bleeding out." Doc chuckled softly. "I'm just doing my job. But Hawk, you're really crazy charging in there like you're young again." Hawk looked at Ethan, his voice low. "I remember the time Ethan asked me if I was scared when fighting. I said I was scared, but I wouldn't run away. This time, I'm more afraid of losing that boy than anything else. We're old, but we won't let age stand in our way." Sarah took Hawk's hand, her eyes welling up. "Dad, I don't know what to say. Thank you, Dad, and all of you." Hawk nodded. "Don't thank me. Family is the reason I live." Bear sipped his coffee and looked at Hawk. "What do you think, Hawk? Should we retire for good this time, or take on one more job?" Hawk laughed loudly for the first time that night. "I'm done here, Bear. But if you guys want to throw down, just call me." Doc shook his head. "Come on. I want to sleep for a long time. Don't drag me into any more crazy stuff." Ghost replied succinctly, "We're still SEALs. Whether we retire or not, I'm ready." Hawk looked at the team, emotion swelling inside him. He remembered the days in DevGru, the sleepless nights, the close calls with death, and the brotherhood that pulled them through it all. Now, at 80 years old, they still stood here, not for a mission, but for a promise. He murmured, "You guys are the best team I've ever had. We've proven that age doesn't kill the SEAL spirit." Sarah sat next to Ethan, whispering, "I won't cross the border anymore, Mr. Hawk. I've learned." Hawk nodded. "Good. Kid, take a break. Tomorrow we celebrate." He stood up, looking out the window at the brightening San Diego light. like the promise of a new day. The morning light poured through the window of John Hawk Callahan's wooden house in San Diego, illuminating the small living room now filled with tired yet satisfied faces. Hawk sat in his familiar armchair, his left shoulder carefully bandaged by Eddie Doc Alvarez, even though he still felt sharp pains with every movement. Ethan lay on the sofa, wrapped in a blanket, sound asleep next to Sarah, the boy's mother, who held her son's hand tightly, as if afraid he would disappear again. The wall clock read 4 a.m. Mike Bear Russo plopped down on the floor, his back against the wall, holding a cup of coffee that Sarah made. Damn it, Hawk! I thought we weren't going to make it out of that hole. Those Los Zetas are tough as nails. Hawk scoffed, his voice raspy. They're tough, but we're tougher. You did great, Bear. Those C4 charges saved our asses. Bear smirked. I was born to blow things up. Doc stood up, checking the medical bag. Hawk, you need a hospital. Your shoulder is infected if it's not treated properly. Stop being so stubborn. Hawk shook his head. I can hold out until morning. Document. Let Ethan rest. I don't want to take him anywhere right now. Doc sighed. You really are a tough old man. Fine, but you have to see a doctor this morning, or I'll drag you there myself. Hawk nodded. Got it. Document. Tom Ghost. Gwen sat by the door, his M24 rifle resting beside him, eyes scanning the outside with a watchful gaze. He took a sip of coffee and said briefly, They won't cross the border. I'm sure of it. Hawk looked at Ghost and nodded. I know. You shoot like a machine. We survive because of you. Ghost shrugged. We're a team. I'm just doing my part. Hawk looked at the team. His gaze heavy as memories from Tijuana flooded back. He recalled the moment in the basement when Hector had him pinned down, a knife at his throat, and he thought he wouldn't make it out alive. But Ethan's whispered words, to your right, helped him find the Colt 1911 and the distant gunfire from Ghost, Bear's C4 explosion, and Doc's cover fire at the side entrance all pulled him and Ethan out of hell. He murmured, You guys didn't just save Ethan. You saved me too. Bear heard this and laughed loudly. Damn it, Hawk. Don't be so cheesy. I just want to punch those guys. Saving you is a bonus. Doc chimed in. I don't want to stitch you up in the middle of all this chaos, but you're too stubborn, so I have to go along. Ghost said briefly. You call it come? That's how we roll. Hawk nodded, emotion swelling. We're getting old, but you guys are still the best team I've ever had. 40 years ago, we lived and died together. Now we're doing it again for Ethan. Sarah sat next to Ethan, listening to the story, her eyes glistening. Dad, you guys, I can't imagine what you've been through. I only knew how to pray at home, but you and the others did the impossible. Hawk looked at Sarah, his voice deep. It wasn't just me, Sarah. It was all of us. We don't leave anyone behind, whether they're teammates or family. Bear clapped his hands. That's right. SEALs don't leave anyone behind, even when the hair turns gray. Hawk took a sip of coffee, reminiscing about the days in DevGru during the operation in Somalia in 1993, when he lost 2 teammates in an ambush. He had vowed never to let anyone die on his watch again, and last night, he kept that promise. He muttered, We may be old, but the warrior spirit never dies. You guys proved that. Doc chuckled softly. The spirit may not die, but my body sure did. I need a week off after this. Ethan stirred on the sofa, waking up to the sound of conversation. He sat up, rubbed his eyes, and looked at Hawk. Mr. Hawk, I dreamed you were shooting. You're really a superhero. Hawk laughed heartily for the first time that night, his voice warm. No, kid, I'm not a superhero. I'm just an old man who doesn't give up. You're the strong one you held on until I got here. Sarah hugged Ethan tightly, whispering, You scared me to death, Ethan. Never cross the border again, okay? Ethan nodded, tears welling in his eyes. I'm sorry, Mom. I didn't know they would catch me, but Mr. Hawk and the others saved me. I won't go anywhere again. Hawk patted Ethan on the shoulder. Good, kid. You've learned your lesson. Don't make me go over there again. Bear chimed in. Damn, this kid is tougher than I thought. You got the heart of a warrior, Ethan. Ethan smiled weakly. I just want to go home. I'm really scared, but I know Mr. Hawk will come. Hawk looked at the boy, feeling warmth in his heart. You believe in me, and that's why we're going to win. Keeping you alive keeps all of us alive. Sarah stood up, wiping her tears. I'm making more coffee. You guys take a break. I'll cook breakfast for everyone this morning. Hawk nodded. Thanks, Sarah. We could use something to eat. He looked at Ethan, seeing the boy smile at his mother, and he knew that all the pain, all the wounds were worth it. Hawk stood up, stepped out onto the porch, and gazed out at the ocean. The dawn was becoming clearer, the bright golden light stretching across the water. He took a deep breath, savoring the cool air of San Diego, so different from the smell of smoke and blood in Tijuana. Bear followed him out, patting Hawk on the shoulder. What do you think, Hawk? Do we still have it in us for one more job? Hawk scoffed. I'm retired for the second time, Bear. But if you guys need me, I'm still in. Doc shouted from inside the house. Don't drag me into your crazy stuff anymore. Hawk, I just want to sleep for a long time. Ghost stood by the door and said briefly, We're old, but we're not done yet. Take a break. Tomorrow is a new day. Hawk nodded, looking at the team. You guys are really a bunch of crazy old men, but I wouldn't trade you for anything. Hawk turned back to look at the ocean, a sense of peace washing over him. He remembered Ethan's words. You're a superhero, he murmured. No, kid, we're just a couple of old guys who won't give up, and that's enough. The rhythmic sound of the waves served as a reminder that they had overcome the darkness, stepping into the light, not just surviving, but living with purpose. The sun had fully risen in the San Diego sky, its brilliant golden light streaming through the windows of John Hawk Callahan's wooden house, warming the living room more than ever. The wall clock read 6 a.m., just a few hours after Hawk, Ethan, and the team returned from Tijuana, but the atmosphere in the house had shifted. Sarah stood in the kitchen, the aroma of freshly brewed coffee and the sizzling sound of bacon in the pan filling the air. Ethan sat on the sofa, more alert now, though his face was still marked with bruises from the days he spent in captivity with Los Zetas. Hawk sat in the armchair, his left shoulder wrapped up thanks to Eddie Doc Alvarez, sipping the coffee that Sarah brought out. He looked at Ethan, seeing the boy give a weak smile to his mother, and murmured, You're tougher than I thought, kid. Sarah came out, placing a plate of bacon and eggs on the table. Turning to Hawk, Dad, you guys dig in. I'm not great at cooking, but this is all I have to say, thank you. Hawk nodded. Thanks, Sarah. We're really hungry. Mike Bear, Russo plopped down on the floor, plate in hand. Damn, Sarah, you cook better than I thought. I figured it was just coffee. He laughed heartily, taking a big bite of bacon. Doc sat at the table, mumbling. I need to eat before I crash. Last night wiped me out. Tom, Ghost, and Gwen stood near the door, holding a cup of coffee, not eating, but his gaze softened more than usual as he looked at Ethan. Hawk gestured. Ghost, sit down. You need a break too. Ghost nodded, sat down next to Doc, and quietly sipped his coffee. Sarah sat next to Ethan, holding the little boy. Eat up, Ethan. You need to regain your strength. Ethan nodded, picked up a piece of egg, and whispered, Thank you, Mom. Thank you, Mr. Hawk and the others. Hawk looked at the boy, his voice deep. Eat plenty, kid. You did great hanging in there until I got here. Ethan smiled. I knew you wouldn't leave me. Hawk set his coffee cup down and looked at his team and family. He recalled the moment in the basement when Hector had him pinned down, a knife at his throat, and he thought he wouldn't make it out alive. But Ethan's voice, the support from Bear, Doc, and Ghost pulled him back from the brink. He said, his voice warm and steady, We're getting old. You know that. My shoulder hurts. My legs ache. But we can still do this. It's not because we're strong, but because we never give up. Bear chewed on a piece of bacon, nodding. Damn it, Hawk, you were right. I thought we were done for when that truck came barreling at us. But we're SEALs, we don't go down that easily. Doc chuckled softly. I thought I was going to die running through that tunnel. But for Ethan, I wouldn't change a thing. Ghost added succinctly. We're a team. Your family is my family. That's all that matters. Sarah listened, her eyes welling up. Dad, you guys? I don't know what to say. I'm just a mother terrified of losing her child, but you all have given me my world back. Hawk looked at Sarah, then at Ethan, his voice steady. The warrior spirit never dies, Sarah. We may be old, but we live for what matters: family, comrades. Ethan is the reason we stand tall. Ethan looked up at Hawk and said, Mr. Hawk, I've learned my lesson. I won't cross the border again. I don't want you to have to save me one more time. Hawk let out a hearty laugh. Good, kid. But if it happens again, I'll still come. You're family to me. Bear chimed in, Damn, this kid's got seal blood in him. When you grow up, I'll teach you how to throw C4. Sarah shot him a glare. No, Mr. Bear. I don't want my son doing crazy stuff like that. The whole team burst into laughter, the sound echoing through the room, chasing away the shadows of the night before. Hawk stood up, stepped out onto the porch, and gazed out the Pacific Ocean, now glowing brightly in the morning sun. He took a deep breath, savoring the cool air of San Diego, so different from the smell of gunpowder and blood back in Tijuana. Bear followed him out, patting Hawk on the shoulder. What do you think, Hawk? Should we retire for good or take on one more job? Hawk scoffed, turning to look at him. I'm done here, Bear. But if you guys are itching for action, just give me a call. I still have a few bullets left in my coat. A voice shouted from inside the house. Don't drag me into your crazy stuff again. Hawk, I just want to sleep for a week. Ghost stepped out, standing next to Hawk, and said briefly, We're old, but we're not done yet. Take a break. Tomorrow is a new day. Hawk nodded, looking at the team. You guys are a bunch of crazy old men, but I wouldn't trade you for anything. We're not just surviving. We're living with purpose. Sarah brought out another plate of bacon and set it on the table. Dad, you guys eat more. I called the doctor this morning. You and Ethan need to get checked out. Hawk nodded. Thanks, Sarah. We'll go. But right now I want to sit here with you guys for a bit. He sat down next to Ethan, watching the boy devour his food, and felt his heart lighten. He murmured, You're the reason I'm alive, kiddo. We can get through this. Bear took a sip of coffee and looked at Hawk. You're right, Hawk. We're getting old, but the SEAL spirit never dies. I'm proud of us. Doc nodded. Me too. But next time, let the cops handle it. I can't run anymore. Ghost let out a rare laugh. The cops can't keep up with us. Hawk looked at the team, then at Sarah and Ethan, his heart full of warmth. We didn't just save Ethan. We saved ourselves, proving that we're still alive, still fighting. Hawk looked out at the sea one last time, the sunlight reflecting off the water like a promise of a new day. He remembered Ethan's words in the basement. I knew you would come. The boy's hope, the camaraderie of Bear, Doc, Ghost, and the love of Sarah had pulled him through the darkness. He murmured, We're not superheroes, just a bunch of old guys who won't give up, and that's enough. Sarah sat next to Ethan, holding the little boy close. Dad, take a break. Today is family day. Hawk nodded, settling down and taking a final sip of his coffee. Bear shouted, Hawk, what do you think? Retire for good or take on one more mission? Hawk laughed heartily. I'm done, Bear, but you all know where to find me if you need me. Laughter erupted, blending with the sound of the ocean waves, wrapping up a journey filled with blood and tears and the warmth of family and unbreakable camaraderie. Thank you for joining us as we relive the blood-soaked and tear-filled journey of Hawk and the SEAL team in today's video. The unbreakable bond of brotherhood, the unstoppable love of family, and the warrior spirit that never dies. These are the messages that Legendary Narratives wants to share with you through this story. If your heart resonates with those moments, please hit like and subscribe so you won't miss the next inspiring tales. We are proud to have you, our amazing audience, along for this journey. Once again, thank you and goodbye for now. We'll see you in the next video. Stay tough, stay proud, and see you soon